Well, my frame making process usually starts with me taking my pickup truck and heading to the lumber store, and I buy rough 2x6 cedar. It's my favorite wood to use for my frames because it has a nice rough grain that's picking that up. Cut them with my table saw so the rough part is out, is exposed for the grain in the frame. That's how I start. I bought 6 on this trip. I bought 6 2x6s, and I usually end up doing this on Monday after a show weekend to replenish the frames from the show from that weekend. There's some that I've already run through the table, so 2x6 is what I usually do, is cut the ends off both sides first, and then I get these pieces here, which are 5/8 thick and a little under 2 inches, and these become the frames. And I got these will be like the 11x14 frames and all the larger frames, and then these here will be stripped again through the table saw to be, they're cut 1 inch thick, and that'll be my 1 inch 8x10 frames, so all those will become 8x10 frames. Anyway, right now I'm running the table saw. I thought I'd take a little video of it, and next step will be to, after I cut them all the sizes, to run the edge, so I could slip glass into place to hold the glass in place. It's kind of chamfered edge that'll be put on them. And anyway, I'll video that next. Well, all of the 2x6 by 8 foot cedar planks are now cut into strips through the table saw. I ended up using all 6 of the planks that I had. So this is what they look like now. And these are all for the 11x14 frames on up to the 30x40 frames, and they'll get boxed. And I'll show you what getting boxed is later on in this video. Now I've been running them through, after I cut all the strips, I run them through the table saw to get this little steppered edge. So when I cut them in the miter saw to the different sizes, I'm able to drop a glass in there for a frame. I don't know if you can actually see that, get an idea what that edge looks like. I'll take another picture when the frame is together, and before I paint them. Anyway, that's 6 2x6 by 8 cedar planks, rough cedar planks, cut right there. And I should get probably about 20 11x14s and 40 8x10s out of that, and a couple of 16x20s, I think 2 20x30 frames and 2 30x40 frames. I'm pretty sure I'll get that out of that. So I get a lot of frames out of it. 6 planks if I cut them right. I try not to waste anything. Anyway, till I get to the next step, that's it. So to get that chamfered edge on the strips of wood that I just cut, I I use the table saw rather than a router. I used to use a router, but this moves along much quicker, and I basically just set it so the blade is about 1/4 inch high, and run a pass which gives it 1/8 inch wide by 1/4 inch high, and then I just did the second pass so it's in that position. So I start out with the first pass with the guard right up, just so it's almost touching the blade, and then the second pass I move out 1/8 inch, and by the end of it, it gives me a 1/4 inch lip, which works out great for setting the glass in the frame. And it works good with the table saw. So after I get all the chamfered edges done, I box out the frames. I box out the strips of wood so they have this nice edge. So when they are assembled, they have this boxed edge to them. If you can get to see it well. And I do it. This is how I do it. I pretty much cut other strips of wood all from the same 6 2x6s, and then I brad nail them into place. Now there's 4 complete strips that have had the box edge put on them, and out of one of those strips I'm able to get 1.5 11x14 frames, or 1 16x20 frame, and it takes 2 of those to do a 30x40 frame. Then I have some extra left over, make something else. Now that all the strips of wood are ready to be mitered to cut the angles to make the frames, I do usually 10 pieces at a time, 10 sticks at a time. I'm doing the 8x10, so these here are gonna be the 8x10 frames once they're done. Once all the strips are cut and mitered, they're ready to be assembled into 8x10 frames, and that's what's in this box. And that's the next step, is to assemble the frames. So now I'm ready to cut the 11x14 frames. I usually do about 8-foot section lengths at a time. That's about what I can handle doing as far as my table space and stuff. So as you can see, these are the boxed out strips of wood boxed on this side when they get cut, and then get assembled into a nice box frame. So that's what they look like now. The next step is I'm going to cut them into 11-inch and 14-inch cuts, so I can go to the next step, which would be assembling 11 by 14 frames. I'm going to cut the 45-degree angles now. Quite a bit of that. So I've been doing this for about 15 years now, every week, almost every week. Very careful. Saws too, because at this point I make quite a few frames. I think last count I've sold over 20,000 of my photographs, and most of them are in frames. Probably 99% of what I do is frame work. So I've made a lot of these 45-degree cuts. Once I do this, the next step would be assembling the frames. So there's a bunch of the 11 by 14 box frame pieces. So this here section here, this will make 8 frames. Well, now all the 11 by 14 frame pieces have been cut and mitered, and also the 20 by 30 window frame. That's all the pieces for the 20 by 30s, the 16 by 20s, and the long ones over there, the 30 by 40 frames. Now it's time to assemble all of them. So that's what I'm going to do next. Well, now that my frames have all been cut, mitered, all the frame pieces I mean, these are the 11 by 14s. 11 by 14s, and I've cut all the frame pieces I need for all the different sizes, so everything's ready to be assembled now. So what I use is Type-On premium wood glue, Type-On 2. I find it's the best. Works good for me. Keeps nice strong connections. And once I do the Type-On, then I use 1 1/4 inch brads. My nail gun here. And then it gives me a good firm corner. And that's a complete 11 by 14 frame now. All that's left to do with that is to let it dry for a night. Everything will be nice and strong, and tomorrow they'll be ready to paint. That's where I have a spot now where I can drop a 11 by 14 piece of glass in there, and it's all set to have a photo put into it. I still got to get painted yet, and there's still a bit more of the process, but that's basically it. Well, after all that, I got all my frames made, all assembled, and out of the six 2x6x8 cedar planks that I had, I was able to make everything I needed to replenish from my last show, and since I decided to cut all the planks, I figured I only needed 4 to do what I needed to do, but I figured I'd cut them all and get ahead of the game for the next show. So anyway, so I got all these strips left over. I'll probably be able to make quite a bit out of those. But what I did get done were these 2 30x40 frames. That's the 2 big ones. 2 16x20s. 2 20x30s, and the 20x30s are what I use to make the window frames. So those still need a little work, which I'll probably do tomorrow and put window panes in those. And then I also managed to make 30 8x10s. I had some in inventory, so I didn't have to quite make all 40. And I made a dozen 11x14 box frame, and I had a little bit of extra wood to make some from those to make an extra 8x10 box frame and 2 8x8 canvas box frames for canvas. The box frame, when I make a box frame for canvas, it's got to have a deeper edge, like that's an inch and a quarter versus a 3/4 inch box, and that has to do with compensating for the depth of the canvas, which is 3/4 inch. So when somebody hangs it on their wall, it'll sit flat against the surface of the wall. Anyway, so I'm done for the day, and that means it's time for a cold beer because it's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's what the clock says. Of course, that clock has been broke for years, and it's only right twice a day, but it does say 5 o'clock, so over and out. So you can see it's a windy day. I waited a couple of days before I painted, but the wind has been here last 2 days, and I need to do this because it's getting closer to showtime. Anyway, so excuse the wind that you probably hear in the microphone. I just finished painting the 8x10 white frames. I got 3 clothesines full of these frames. So once that's done, then I can paint the larger frames and also the other colored frames. Now all the 8x10s have been painted, and it's time to paint the larger frames. These are the 16x20s over there. And then the ones that I was calling window frames now have the window panes in them. So that's the 2 window frames, and then we got the 2 30x40s here, all set to get painted, and then all those over there, 11x14s, and the 8x8s. So they're all ready to be painted. The next step is to paint. So I just finished painting all these, and I'll need to dry for a day. Can't leave them out overnight, so once they're dried after a few hours, I stack them and bring them into the shop. And then tomorrow they'll be nice and dry, and then I could do the next step, which I will be doing today with the 8x10s that I painted yesterday, which is roughing them up to give the distressed look. These will dry for a day, and then tomorrow I'll sand them. So my next step for today is going to sand the frames on the 8x10s. Nice clean paint job, and like I said, this is an 8x10 that you've seen made right from the beginning when it was a 2x6 plank. So I use a 60 grit sandpaper. I particularly like the Norton sandpaper. It's well made.
So I just do a little creative stroke here to try not to take too much off. The texture and the wood. Right. What I neglected to say was before I paint all the frames white, when I'm doing white frames, or weathered white frames is the title, before I paint them white, I paint them all gray. So I do 2 coats of gray. It's called winter gray. And I let that dry. And that way I can get this effect. I don't know if you can see it. But because it brings out that nice grain. So the bare wood doesn't look as good if I don't paint it gray first. So you get a little bit of the bare wood look as well as the gray comes out. So do that. Go through all the frames. Do the same thing on the large frames, window frames. So getting all these frames ready isn't easy. It takes me a few days between making the frame, cutting the wood, making the frames. And I haven't even gotten to the part where I actually put my artwork, my photography, in the frames, which I will include in this video. Anyway, there's another one.
All the frames are cut, assembled, painted, sanded, and ready for me to mount photos into them. So here's the 8x8s and the 11x14, a little bit of shadow there. So now I'm not working outside anymore. From now on, I'll be in my shop for the next couple of days. And this is where I do all my frame mounting of my photos and also the work that I do clear sealing on my large photographs. Canvas like that stacked there, so I got a few of those to do before this weekend too. And I make the backings for my 11x14s and my 8x10s. I buy these sheets of cardboard from my frame supplier in Fort Lauderdale, and I buy my glass there also. So one thing I don't have to make or cut, though I do cut glass in some of the other cases, but as far as my 8x10s, my 11x14s, I buy pre-cut glass from a distributor in Fort Lauderdale, and that's a big help. And when I make my mounting boards, I make them out of cardboard, like I said, and here's the 8x10s all ready with a D-ring for hanging. So everything's ready to assemble. Right now I'm ready to assemble the 8x10s. This is my little work area in here. I've got my glass right there, my tools. Got a nice tool board behind me. Everything is in reach when I'm standing there or sitting on my stool once I bring my stool in. So now I'm ready to mount my 8x10 photos into the 8x10 frames that were made. And I got my glass ready. I got my backing boards all ready. These here are cut from those large pieces of cardboard that I buy. And I put a D-ring into them. They're glued in place. So I have like a nice sturdy adhesive in there. So I'll select the next photo in my pack. I got a stack of 8x10 prints that I printed out last night and cut them to size, so they're all set to fit into the frames now. And selected the frame I want to use. Got the 8x10 piece of glass. It fits perfectly in there. All the cuts look good. And this happens to be a picture from Key West. Palm trees and a boat going by. I call it Key West palms. And that's ready to slip in there. Take one of these backing boards, put it in place. Take the
point driver. It's a handy tool to hold everything in place. I don't know what a point driver is. It's the thing that puts these tabs, these little tabs, they're called flexible inserts. So you can actually lift them up and remove the picture if you wanted to. It's handy. Anyway, so now it's all loaded up. Next thing we'll do is put one of my labels on the back. My Lizard Key Design labels with my artist statement. Sign it. And I sign all my photos on the front. I did that after I did the print stuff. I don't know if you can see that. So now that's the first complete 8x10 in the frame, ready to get packed. So I got a bunch to do. Probably take me the rest of the day to get those done. Tomorrow or tonight I can start on the 11x14.
So here's the final product. I started out with 6 2x6x8 cedar planks at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week I have all this, and all my photos are mounted and ready to go. So, starting on the left side here, this is one of the window frames, and I said I was making windows. That's a beach house type window, and that photo that's in it is called Nassau Beach Palm. Photo of a palm tree and the Hog Island Lighthouse in the background in Nassau, in the Bahamas. Then down there, that's one of the 16x20s that I made, canvas print, and that's also a canvas print. The Nassau Beach Palm, that's canvas. And this 16x20 is called Boat at Grand Turk in the Turks and Caicos. And this one here is one of the 30x40s canvas prints, and that is called The Bicycles on Fleming, and that's in Key West, Florida. And over here is another one of the 30x40 canvas prints framed. That's called 5 O'Clock Somewhere. That's Andros Island in the Bahamas. And down there, that's another one of the 16x20 canvas prints framed, and that one is called Doca del Combate. That's in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. And over here is the other window that I made, and that is a photo of a boat in Cozumel. And the name of that one is David, and that comes from the name on the boat. Then up top there on the table, these are the 11x14s with the box frames. And over here are the 8x8 canvas prints framed. And then over here are all of the 8x10 photos framed with glass. And that's it. Takes me about 5 days to get this whole project done. It's usually what I got between shows, so there's a lot happening between art shows when I have art show weekends back to back, which happens pretty often in season. If there's only 4 days, it's hard to get that much done. And anyway, that's it from start to finish. What I do in a week, starting cutting my frames, or buying my wood, cutting my frames, and mounting my photographs. Thanks for coming along and watching. I appreciate it. And for more information, you can visit our website, www.blizzardkey.com, and there you'll see my photography work as well as my wife Tessa's beautiful glass work. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.